Ladies and gentlemen, God want to bring in investigation to Canada in the rcmp department about my case, what they discussed behind my future in Canada. And I bring into all of you evidence what is the God plan. According to information I have, ladies and gentlemen, this happening in Canada, you can see the date, 1900, which is 100 years ago, more a little bit. And Fort McMurray happening after this fire. So God want to bring, because Fort McMurray fire happening in Canada, to bring in us SMP department under my investigation to the 7 of the city. God was going to continue this fire go to hit in 7 of the city completely all over the ashes. So something happening, God stopped the fire, which is, I understand, in this house, they come and cry in the news. There was a few lady, they came and cry in the news, and that time I understand the Spirit of God told me that's enough, we can let go. And I told God is okay. So God stopped the fire, but I bring to you evidence what is going to come into Canada. According to information, gentlemen, I have, God want to bring RCMP department in Canada on the 700,000 trillion to their government they pay by TUSNAMI, which is this TUSNAMI costing same thing as fire happening in the city, capital city, which is their capital city, all over the ashes in Canada, or their building completely be dust on the ground from the parliament building, everything be dust, ashes. According to information, ladies and gentlemen, one tsunami, major tsunami here, can cause same thing as fire. So God releasing this information to many part to know that government of Canada come in this this investigation, under my investigation, on the God investigation, to my investigation be raised in Canada. In the world news can receive that lawsuit against this department RCMP for 700,000 trillion God wants, or this is going to happen into their capital city, because God want to completely destroy in the Canada government city from Ottawa to their capital city, to bring in this department RCMP under my investigation for $700 billion they must pay me according to this man. I told $7 billion they must pay, but God replying $700 billion you RCMP must pay me, or I bring to you evidence in short time, because that money is not important. You want to pay. This is a message of God came today. We will attack you, government of Canada, from February 2023. You've been charged RCMP department for 700,000 trillion. Your government, Canada, must come in the news and pay for your department crime. Before I let your department walk away, two things coming in the news: your government be destroyed in Ottawa to 7 cities, according to information I have. Got a tsunami coming by major 8.7 earthquake to their country, to making their government building ashes, as happened in 1900, 100 years ago. Or you pay RCMP 700 billion to Qassem Yar Ahmadi. If you don't pay, we will destroy your country from February. This is a message came again to I send into many parts of you to receive that. If you see that government of Canada be hit by 8.7 earthquake, ladies and gentlemen, as happening here before, they're all building be destroyed, parliament, Canada completely be ashes. You don't be surprised, because God commands to Canada this going to happen to the parliament building, to bring in this department RCMP under my investigation for world breaking news. According to this man here, he won't bring the government of Canada on the world breaking news for lawsuits against their country, because I understand in this year 2023 got finished this situation in Canada, this way or other way. I understand 100% because I have knowledge and wisdom about God. This building become this in 2023. I can say February, from February, God time. I can say 1 week, 2 weeks. I don't know exactly 100%, but God will do that in the short time. Or the RCMP department coming to pay me $700 billion because I did promise to God, I will not let your department RCMP walk away before your government come to pay 700,000 trillion by TUSNAMI. Because you casting crime, your department behind my future, and you interrupt, not only interrupt, you affect my future according to the Space Coast side. And I know that 100% you did, RCMP department, you did affect by two face. Behind my future, you did affect my future, which is I did promise to God, my blood. I put my blood on the ground. If your country not be destroyed, you must believe I bring into your country biggest space attack ever was in the history to shutting down your department under my investigation by your country coming under national emergency space attack to your government. I am not speaking only myself. This man is told it is going to happen. Japan earthquake to your capital city Ottawa, which is costing as happening here 1900 years ago, 1900, which is happening 1900 fire hit your country. This message must go to many people to know that, ladies and gentlemen, this RCMP department owned me in Canada for crime they did behind my future, but terrorist Muslim is other side, which is in Canadian Security Service. But this department did many crime behind my value, behind my future, and I did swear to God, two things will happen. Canada be destroyed, or this department coming to pay me $700 billion for my time I lost in Canada for 10 years of crime of this department RCMP behind my life. So God know that, ladies and gentlemen, He want to send to the many parts in the YouTube, in the world. You don't be surprised because God releasing a space attack to the government of Canada as happening 1900 before by angel releasing this attack to the government of Canada. I have evidence, ladies and gentlemen, here. I bring it to all of you, evidence here. This happening, ladies and gentlemen, in Canada. This was in the YouTube, and I did not know that. So a spirit of God sending this coming to be raised in the Canada, not by fire, by tsunami, which is costing same thing as fire, as Fort McMurray happening in Canada. All their building has been destroyed. To bring in this department under my investigation for lawsuit, because I did promise to God I want lawsuit against this department RCMP for 700,000 trillion if they don't pay me $700 billion as God command to go this information in the news. Because I understand, ladies and gentlemen, God want to bring Sudan and Gumaro to the government of Canada. And I understand 100% this coming to their capital city Ottawa, according to information I have. Japan earthquake 9.3, 8.7, and tsunami raising in Canada, which is their capital city Ottawa. All their building God want to destroy it. To bring in this department under this time, under my investigation, as happening to Canada. According to information, gentlemen, I have, this was the acts of God happening in Canada 100 years ago, and I bring it to you more evidence. This is the acts of God coming to Canada again, 2023, from February, And this is the acts of God again coming to Canada. By angel raising to bring in government of Canada under this investigation, by angel coming to attack their country, their capital city. So this information must go to many parts to receive that. If you see in the YouTube, they raising the news by 8.7 earthquake happening to government of Canada. I send it to all of you to know that, because Fort McMurray fire, when happening 2 weeks before I send the fire coming, God told I will release the fire to their country. And this fire was going to carry on, as I told you, for the long time, for few months, at least 6 months. This fire was going to carry on because God raised the sun that time, and that sun didn't take off. That sun carry on to bring the halting the fire was going to go to Edmonton city, and no one was out of control that fire in the Fort McMurray to completely bring in halting the Canada and the breaking down the system. To my investigation coming to RCMP department for $700 billion, but but plan was $7 billion that time. But Space God releasing this information to YouTube news, to many people receive that Canada, they are under my investigation for crime of the RCMP they did behind my future and Antichrist. Beside that, this department, which is I was a witness to this Antichrist department and what they did. So God want to many people receive that this is coming to Canada to happening, because God want lawsuit, as I send into all of you here this information. God replying, we will attack your government Canada from February to bring in to charge in your RCMP department on the Qassam Yar Ahmadi for 700,000 terrain, which is God know that the two things will happen in by Space God side. They attack in Canada to completely crash down the government system, as Fort McMurray happening, not this time by tsunami, by earthquakes, but major tsunami as Japan happening, or government of Canada paying me for crime of the RCMP, what they did behind my future, which is God know that I will bring in investigation in the world news. They can receive that. So these two things coming, God want many country receive that in the YouTube. These two things coming to Canada to happen in their country be freeze. Completely their country be freeze, because this earthquake not going to be earthquake. This earthquake shaking the magnetic earth, holding the system of the earth will feel in this magnetic shield be shaking. And basically all their building in the Ottawa, they have everything be completely destroyed. To bring in this RCMP department under my investigation, according to God, 700,000 trillion got charged in the country. But I can explain for you how come 700,000 trillion, because God released into tsunami to government of Canada, and this tsunami will not be stopped. This carry on. As happened in Fort McMurray fire, for 50 days, the Fort McMurray there was on the fire. Nobody stopped the fire. Nobody was able to stop the fire. God told me, enough, we will stop the fire, because I bring to you evidence. Few lady standing here and crying in the news. And God say enough. So I understand this tsunami is costing 10 times, 100 times worse than Fort McMurray. According to information I have, tsunami going very fast, 1,000 times faster than fire. Because one wind, 250 kilometers by earthquake, tsunami costing immediately this happening. It's not going to be 50 days. But subject is, I bring into your evidence, because the Fort McMurray fire was a 50 days tsunami hit in Canada. We are talking about one tsunami take 24 hours completely breaking down all their government city in the Ottawa, completely be destroyed. 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Take 24 hours maximum, all their building in the Ottawa be destroyed by tsunami 8.7 earthquakes. But subject, this tsunami going for 50 days according to God, because God number was a 40 to the 47 coming to the 50 days. And 50 days Canada facing tsunami. To the 7 of their city be exactly like 1900 year happening in Ottawa. This is a Canada. To bring in RCMP department under my investigation, because God know that I am dead if he don't bring in this department under investigation, because I don't want to exist. If this department not coming under completely be destroyed, because their government Canada become under this 1900 years ago, which was a great fire happening in Canada according to their information. This happening in Canada before. Great fire of the Ottawa Hall, which is destroyed in all their building in the Ottawa. This was the acts of God according to information I have, ladies and gentlemen. But acts of God coming to same position in their capital city, Ottawa, to happening again as happening 1900. But this time is coming by earthquake to tsunami. God want to bring government of Canada on the international world news as happened in Fort McMurray. 50 days they was on the news, but 50 days they going on the news for tsunami. Windstorm, tsunami, snow, costing their country completely be freeze under this investigation for RCMP crime what they did under police behind the my future in Canada, which is God know that I won lawsuit against the Canada. I don't want a Canada walk away. God know that 100% I am bringing their capital city to be destroyed, myself. Because I did bring in Fort McMurray. I bring in Japan earthquake to you. I want lawsuit against your department RCMP, and you must believe I put my blood on the ground if I don't do that, bring your country under my investigation, as happening Fort McMurray fire to your country. But I am talking about 50 days space will release into tsunami to your country, as happened in Japan earthquakes. This tsunami will cause shaking the earth, ladies and gentlemen, to Canada to bring in basically their government completely be destroyed under this criminal investigation of their country, what they did behind my future. So we are up my number, which is I understand 700,000 trillion is coming, ladies and gentlemen, in the news, because why I'm talking about this earthquake to tsunami will destroy in 7 of the city of the Canada for bankruptcy. Because plan is to not allowing Canada building again, because cases God he don't want Canada building their country again. God want to bring Canada under my investigation to bring in RCMP department on the world breaking news. They can understand this investigation happening by me. World can receive that Canada did crime by this department RCMP, and God bring in this investigation, my investigation to their country by 7 to tsunami destroying government of Canada. This information coming on the world news, ladies and gentlemen, to know that, because according to a space God said he replied me, if you believe in Fort McMurray happening 50 days your country was under fire, 24-hour news, you must believe to tsunami coming for 50 days in Canada, because plan is completely destroying their government according to God, not according to me, because I did not get paid and they trying to play game. Beside that, Canada is coming between me and my future, costing many crime, ladies and gentlemen, from this department RCMP criminal behind my case, many thousand crime they did this department RCMP to basically stopping me to not go forward, which is I am going to bring this to the country. I am going to bring this to the capital city, Ottawa. According to God, God releasing my information, my message my investigation to government of Canada by this to their capital city to 7 city for 50 days in the 2023 from February any moment God time. I don't know time of God, but from February God will releasing this investigation by space attack to the government of Canada to bring in their country, to bring in this department RCMP under my investigation for lawsuit for 700,000 Terrelum God want, because I did not receive the 7 billion from this department. Now God wants 700,000 Terrelum from this building. Before this building coming like this. This information come in reality and truth, ladies and gentlemen, because God is the not liar. An angel of the God is not liar. So this information coming to many part to receive that this is coming to the world breaking news as happening in Canada before God did bring his axe to Canada and freezing their country, because Canada is the most criminal country, ladies and gentlemen. I will prove in the news crime of the Canada, their police and their RCMP behind my case, what they did so far behind my life. So I bring in the international world news, ladies and gentlemen. Many people receive that, but subject I send in to all of you to know that God replying not to be under deadly attack if not to raising support in Canada. This is a subject, or European. And United States be under lawsuit very soon because God will to release the space investigation to the team of the United States for the crime of Canada they involved behind the subject, and they did not attack Canada or freezing government of Canada. United States put me on the risk in Canada, my life. So this information coming on the world breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, to many people know that angel of the God be unleashed coming to the government to Canada to bring in my investigation to their country for 7 city beyond the TUSNAMI, as happy as you can see that here.